The blue morning light of 3 suns shone through the crystal windows of the Valari Council chambers. Ambassador Thalaris stood before the great viewing screen that showed their dying worlds. His long, graceful fingers trembled as he watched another colony ship explode in the distance. The Kethmore Empire had come again. "How many this time?" asked Council Leader Vrendal, her voice barely a whisper. 12,000 souls on the transport ships, maybe more on the surface colonies. Thalaris could not look away from the burning ships. They gave no warning, no chance to surrender. They just destroyed everything. The Valari had always been a peaceful people. For over 2,000 years, they had spread across 12 star systems, building beautiful cities that floated among the clouds, growing gardens that fed entire worlds, and healing any creature that asked for help. They had no weapons because they had never needed weapons. War was something they read about in ancient texts, not something that happened to real people, but the Kethmore Empire was very real. The silicon-based creatures had appeared at the edge of Valari space 6 months ago. They looked like walking, mountains of gray rock with glowing red eyes and voices that sounded like grinding stone. They spoke through translators, demanding that all biological life leave their space immediately. The Valari had tried to explain that they meant no harm. They offered to share their healing knowledge, their farming techniques, their peaceful ways. The Kethmore response was simple. Biological life was weak and had no right to exist in their galaxy. Then the killing began. "Sir," called tech specialist Morlan from his station, "we're receiving another transmission from the Kethmore fleet." "Put it on the main screen," Thalaris said, though he dreaded what he would see. The image of Emperor Kethvar filled the chamber. The massive creature's rock-like face showed no emotion as his grinding voice echoed through the room. "Biological scum of the Valari systems. You have 3 of your local days to evacuate all your worlds. After that time, we will sterilize every planet in your space. Your soft flesh and weak bones have no place in our galaxy. Leave now, or be destroyed." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in terrible silence. 3 days, whispered Vrendal, to evacuate 12 star systems. It's impossible. "Where would we even go?" asked another council member. "Every species we know fears the Kethmore. No one will take us in." Thalaris stared at the dark screen for a long moment. Then he turned to Morlan. "Do we still have the deep space communication array?" "Yes, sir. But who would we call? Everyone in this sector knows about the Kethmore. They won't help us." "Then we don't call this sector." Thalaris walked to the communication station. "Open a channel on all frequencies. Send it as far as our transmitters can reach." "Sir?" "If we're going to die, at least let the galaxy know what happened to us. Maybe someone somewhere will care that an entire civilization was murdered for the crime of being alive." Morlan's hands moved over his controls. "Channel open, sir. Broadcasting on all frequencies, full power." Thalaris took a deep breath. He had no idea if anyone would hear this message. He had no idea if anyone would care. But he had to try. "This is Ambassador Thalaris of the Valari Confederation. We are a peaceful alliance of 12 star systems. For 6 months we have been under attack by the Kethmore Empire. They have destroyed our colonies, killed our people, and now they demand we abandon our home worlds or face complete extermination." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "We are not warriors. We do not know how to fight. Our technology is for healing, for growing food, for exploring the stars in peace. We have no weapons, no armies, no way to defend ourselves against these creatures who believe that biological life has no right to exist. Thalaris looked at the screen, imagining that somewhere in the vast galaxy, someone might be listening. If there is anyone out there who believes that peaceful people should not be murdered for existing, we beg for your help. We do not ask you to fight our battles. We only ask that you remember us when we are gone. Remember that the Velari tried to make the galaxy a better place. He paused, then added quietly, "This may be our last transmission. In 3 days, the Kethmor will begin destroying our worlds. If you are receiving this message, please know that we died hoping for a better galaxy than the one we are leaving behind." The transmission ended. The council chamber was quiet except for the soft humming of the equipment. "Now what?" asked Vrendal. "Now we wait," Thalaris said, "and we prepare to evacuate as many people as we can." But even as he said it, he knew it was hopeless. They had thousands of ships, but the Kethmor had destroyed most of their faster vessels. The remaining transports were slow and could only carry a few hundred people each. With 12-star systems and billions of Velari to evacuate, they might save 1% of their population if they were very lucky. The next few hours passed in a blur of desperate activity. Ships launched from every world, packed with families, who carried only what they could hold in their arms. Children cried for toys left behind. Parents tried to comfort them while hiding their own terror. Far across the galaxy, in a place the Velari had never heard of, Captain Hansol sat in the communication center of Luna Station. He was drinking his 3rd cup of coffee and reviewing the night's routine reports when Communications Officer Su-Jin suddenly sat up straight at her station. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on the deep space channels." "Strange how?" "It's a distress signal, but it's not coming from any human system. The language is completely alien, but our AI is working on translation." Hansol set down his coffee cup. "How far away?" "At least 200 light years, maybe more. It's a very strong signal." Tactical analyst Dongmin looked up from his screen. "Translation is coming through now, sir. You're going to want to hear this." Hansol listened to the translated message from Ambassador Thalaris. As the words sank in, his expression grew darker and darker. "Su-Jin, get me Admiral Young-Ho on. Priority channel. Dong-Min, start pulling up everything we have on that sector." "Sir?" Su-Jin asked. "What are your orders?" Hansol stared at the data streaming across his screen. Somewhere far away, an entire civilization was about to be wiped out for the crime of being peaceful. "Get me the Admiral," he said quietly. "It's time to wake up the fleet." In the Velari systems, Ambassador Thalaris sat in his empty office, watching the last transport ships flee toward uncertain safety in deep space. He had sent his message into the void 3 hours ago. So far, only silence had answered. He did not know that his desperate plea had just reached a species that had spent 10,000 years learning how to turn impossible odds into victory. He did not know that his message had awakened something far more dangerous than the Kethmor Empire had ever imagined. All he knew was that in 71 hours, his people would be extinct, unless a miracle happened. Admiral Young-Ho had been sleeping for exactly 4 hours when his emergency communicator started screaming. He rolled out of bed in his quarters on Earth Defense Command and was fully awake before his feet hit the floor. 40 years in the service had taught him that late-night emergency calls usually meant someone was about to die. "This is Admiral Young-Ho. Sir, this is Captain Hansol at Luna Station. We've intercepted an alien distress signal. You need to hear this immediately." Young-Ho was already pulling on his uniform. "How immediately?" The signal indicates an entire civilization will be extinct in 68 hours, sir. That stopped Young Ho cold. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Send the recording to my personal files and start waking up the emergency council. 28. Minutes later, Young Ho stood in the Luna Station Command Center, listening to the translated message from Ambassador Thalaris for the third time. Around him, holographic images of Earth Defense Council members flickered as they joined the emergency session from around the solar system. How reliable is this translation? Asked Council Member President Kim from Mars Colony. Our AI systems cross-referenced it with 17 different linguistic models, Su Jin reported. Confidence level is 96%. The message is genuine. And we're certain this isn't some kind of trap? This from General Park, calling in from Titan Base. Captain Hans Sol pulled up the signal analysis. The transmission came from over 200 light-years away. No known hostile force has that kind of range, and the energy signature matches peaceful exploration technology, not military equipment. Young Ho studied the star charts that Dong Min had prepared. What do we know about this Kethmore Empire? Very little, sir. Our deep space scouts have never operated in that region. But based on the signal, they appear to be a silicon-based species with significant military capability and a doctrine of biological extermination. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They're killing an entire peaceful species just for being alive, President Kim said quietly. And if they succeed, they'll keep doing it to others, added General Park. Young Ho looked around at the faces of the council members. He had served with most of these people for decades. They had fought together in the asteroid wars, survived the Europa crisis, and built humanity's defense against every threat the galaxy had thrown at them. He could see the same thought in all their eyes. Recommendations? General Park spoke first. We mobilize everything we have. Full fleet deployment. Agreed, said President Kim. This is exactly the kind of threat our defense forces were created to handle. The logistics will be challenging, Admiral Chen noted from her position with the Jupiter Defense Fleet. 200 light-years is at the extreme edge of our operational range. Then we make it work, Young Ho said firmly. Su Jin, send a priority message to all human colonies and defense stations. Authorization code Alpha 07. Tell them we're mobilizing for emergency humanitarian intervention. Sir, that's the code for existential threat response, Su Jin said carefully. Yes, it is. Because that's exactly what this is. Over the next 6 hours, something unprecedented happened across human space. From the mining colonies of the asteroid belt to the agricultural worlds of Alpha Centauri, from the research stations orbiting distant stars to the military bases guarding the outer systems, humanity responded with terrifying efficiency. Captain Hyunwoo received the mobilization order while his dreadnought Soul's Fury was undergoing routine maintenance at the Mars shipyards. Within 2 hours, his crew had completed repairs that were scheduled to take 2 weeks. Chief Engineer Yoon-soo, how are we looking? He asked over the ship's communication system. All systems green, Captain. We can launch in 30 minutes. Make it 20. Commander Ji-hai was leading a training exercise with her destroyer squadron when the call came. Her ships were scattered across 100,000 kilometers of space, practicing stealth maneuvers. All ships form up on my position. Immediately, she transmitted. Emergency deployment authorization has just come through. What's the target, Commander? Asked Captain Lee from the destroyer Busan's Pride. Unknown alien hostiles threatening genocide against peaceful civilians. There was a pause, Then Captain Lee's voice came back grimmer. Understood. Forming up. Now! Colonel Tae-sung was reviewing personnel files in his office when his aide, Lieutenant Bo-ram, burst through the door. Sir, we just received mobilization orders. Full deployment, all Marines, emergency authorization. Tae-sung looked up from his paperwork. How long do we have? 12 hours to full deployment readiness, sir. Get me every available Marine from Earth to Titan. Cancel all leave, recall all personnel from training missions, and start loading the transports. He stood up and grabbed his field gear. And Bo-ram? Break out the heavy equipment. Dr. Yoon-ji was in her laboratory studying samples from the Europa ice cores when her research assistant ran in with a tablet. Doctor, Earth Defense wants you on the next transport to Luna Station. They're asking for xenobiological analysis support. Yoon-ji looked at the research request on the tablet. Silicon-based life forms? I've never seen anything like this before. They're saying it's priority 1, Doctor. Something about first contact with hostile aliens. First contact? Yoon-ji was already packing her equipment. This could be the most important discovery in human history. Or the last, her assistant said quietly. Meanwhile, in the shipyards and defense stations across human space, a different kind of miracle was happening. Ships that had been scheduled for months of upgrades were being pushed into service in days. Weapons systems that existed only as prototypes were being rushed into production. Crews that had never worked together were forming into combat units with the desperate efficiency that only humans seemed to manage. The numbers were staggering. From Earth alone, the home defense fleet was contributing 200 ships. Mars colony added another 150. The Outer System Defense Force brought in 300 more, but it was the smaller contributions that showed the true scope of humanity's response. The mining colonies of the asteroid belt contributed 40 armed cargo haulers, their civilian crews volunteering for military service. The agricultural world sent their entire merchant marine, loaded with supplies for an extended campaign. Even the scientific research stations contributed what they could: sensor arrays, communication equipment, and volunteers with specialized knowledge. Within 18 hours of receiving the Valari distress signal, Admiral Young-ho was looking at a fleet roster that made him proud and terrified at the same time. Final count? He asked Captain Han-sol. 847 ships, sir, from corvettes to dreadnoughts, plus support vessels, supply ships, and medical units. Crew complement? Just over 200,000 personnel, sir. That includes fleet crew, Marines, technical specialists, and medical staff. Young-ho stared at the numbers. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. And they all volunteered? Every single one, sir. We actually had to turn people away. Doctor, Yoon-ji approached with her preliminary analysis. Admiral, I've been studying what little data we have on the Kethmore. Their biology is completely unlike anything we've encountered. Silicon-based life forms operating on entirely different principles from biological systems. What does that mean for our weapons' effectiveness? Unknown, sir, but I suspect they've never encountered anything like us either. Most of the galaxy appears to be much more peaceful than humanity. Young-ho nodded. What about the Valari? Classic carbon-based biological life. Similar to Earth organisms in many ways, but evolved on much more peaceful worlds. They appear to be completely pacifist. No weapons technology at all. How long until the fleet is ready for departure? Captain Hyun-woo stepped forward. 6 hours, sir. The last of the supply ships will be loaded by then. Young-ho looked around at his officers. These were people who had spent their careers preparing for threats to human space. Now they were about to travel 200 light years to defend aliens they had never met against an enemy they knew nothing about. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're about to do has never been attempted before. We're deploying the entire human fleet to defend a peaceful alien species against genocidal attackers. We have no idea what we're flying into, but we know what we're fighting for. He paused, then continued. The Valari sent out a distress call expecting maybe a small rescue ship or some diplomatic help. They have no idea that their message reached a species that considers genocide an unacceptable threat to galactic peace. Colonel Tae Sung grinned. They're about to find out what happens when you threaten innocent people in front of humans. Exactly. Young Ho turned to the main display showing the fleet positions. All ships, prepare for jump to light speed. Destination, Valari space. Mission, complete protection of innocent life and total elimination of the genocidal threat. As the orders went out across the fleet, something remarkable happened. 847 ships, carrying the hopes and determination of an entire species, began moving toward a distant star system where peaceful aliens were about to discover that their desperate plea for help had awakened the most dangerous guardians in the galaxy. The Kethmore Empire was about to learn why most species in the galaxy considered Earth a death world. Ambassador Thalaris stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above Valari Prime, watching the last evacuation ships disappear into the darkness between stars. 43 hours had passed since his desperate message, and the silence from the galaxy had been complete. No response, no help, no hope. Below him, the beautiful blue-green world that had been his home for 300 years prepared for death. The floating cities had been evacuated, their gardens left to wither. The crystal spires that had reached toward the stars for centuries would soon be nothing but melted glass. "Sir," called Technician Moreland from his station, "long-range sensors are detecting the Kethmore fleet. They're 2 hours out from the outer system." Thalaris nodded without turning around. "How many ships?" 57 heavy cruisers, sir. More than enough to sterilize every world in our system. And our remaining population? Perhaps 2 million souls on various stations and ships throughout the system. Everyone who couldn't make it to the evacuation transports. 2 million people, about to die because they had chosen to be peaceful in a galaxy where peace was apparently a crime. Thalaris closed his eyes and tried to find some comfort in knowing that they had tried their best. "Sir!" Moreland's voice was suddenly excited. "I'm reading massive energy signatures at the edge of the system." "The Kethmore?" "No, sir, these are different. Much different. And there are a lot of them." Thalaris turned from the window. "Show me. For me." Main display lit up with sensor readings that made no sense. Hundreds of energy signatures, all different sizes and configurations, were appearing at the very edge of Valari space. As he watched, the numbers kept climbing. "How many?" he whispered. "Over 800 contacts now, sir. They're still arriving." "What kind of ships?" Moreland's hands moved frantically over his controls. "Unknown design, sir. The energy signatures don't match anything in our database. But, sir, they're positioning themselves between us and the incoming Kethmore fleet." Before Thalaris could respond, his communication system activated. A new voice, speaking in accented but understandable Valari, filled the station. "Valari Orbital Stations. This is Admiral Young Ho of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your distress signal. We're here to help." Thalaris stared at the speaker for a long moment. "Earth? I've never heard of Earth." "Sir," Moreland said quietly, They're requesting permission to approach Valari Prime. Give it to them. And thank them. 30 minutes. Later, Thylarus got his first look at a human ship as it docked with his station. The vessel was sleek and dark, covered in what looked like weapon systems. When the airlock opened, 3 creatures stepped through that were unlike anything he had ever seen. They walked on 2 legs like the Valari, but everything else was different. Their skin was tough-looking and came in different colors. Their eyes were small and moved constantly, as if they were always watching for threats, and there was something about the way they moved that made Thylarus think of predators from his world's ancient history. The one in the lead removed his helmet and spoke. "Ambassador Thylarus, I'm Captain Hansol. We need to talk." You're really here to help us?" "That's why we came. But we need information about the Kethmore fleet. Our sensors show they'll be here in 90 minutes. Thylarus led them to the station's command center, where Morlan was tracking both fleets on the main display. Holy... Captain Hansol stopped himself and studied the tactical display. 57 heavy cruisers. That's a serious invasion force. Can you stop them? Thylarus asked. Hansol smiled, and there was something in that expression that reminded Thylarus of hunting creatures from his nightmares. Ambassador, we brought 847 ships. The Kethmore are about to learn why you don't threaten peaceful people in front of humans. An hour later, Thylarus watched from his station as the 2 fleets approached each other. The human ships spread out in a formation that looked like chaos, but somehow felt perfectly organized. The Kethmore fleet came in a straight line, confident and unstoppable. The first shots came from the Kethmore. Massive energy beams that could melt a mountain struck the human formation. Thylarus watched in horror as several human ships were hit directly. Then something impossible happened. The damaged ships didn't retreat. They didn't explode. They kept fighting. Captain Xiong-Ho's cruiser had taken a direct hit that would have destroyed any Valari vessel. But humans built their ships differently. The armor held, the crew kept working, and the ship kept shooting back. "Damage report!" Xiong-Ho called out. "Forward armor is gone, sir. Hull breach on decks 7 and 8, but weapons are still online. Then keep shooting. Helm, bring us closer to that Kethmore command ship. Sir, at this range, they'll destroy us. Maybe, but we'll take them with us." The Kethmore had never faced an enemy that treated certain death as just another tactical option. Their ships were designed to overwhelm opponents who would retreat when faced with impossible odds. But humans didn't retreat. Commander Na Young found herself in command of the frigate Incheon's Hope when a Kethmore beam weapon killed her captain. And half the bridge crew. Her ship was dying, engines failing, life support critical. "Ma'am," her weapons officer called out, "we've lost main power. Weapons are offline." Na Young looked at the tactical display. A Kethmore heavy cruiser was moving toward a cluster of Valari evacuation ships, preparing to destroy them. "How much power do we have left?" "Enough for maybe 10 minutes of life support, ma'am. Or enough for 1 emergency engine burn." The weapons officer realized what she was thinking. "Ma'am, that would be suicide." "No," Na Young said quietly. "That would be useful." She turned the dying frigate toward the Kethmore cruiser and pushed the failing engines to maximum power. The human ship, trailing atmosphere and debris, accelerated directly toward the alien vessel. The Kethmore captain tried to turn away, but it was too late. The frigate struck the cruiser's main reactor section at nearly 10% of light speed. Both ships vanished in a ball of light that could be seen across the system. Thylarus watched the explosion from his station and tried to understand what he had just witnessed. They They sacrificed themselves to save our evacuation ships. That's what humans do, said Communications Officer Su-Jin, who had remained on the station to coordinate with the Valari. We protect people who can't protect themselves. The battle continued for 3 hours. The Kethmore had superior individual ships, but they had never faced an enemy that treated warfare as both science and art. Human ships worked in groups, covering each other, adapting to enemy tactics in real time. Captain Hyun-woo's dreadnought Soul's Fury found itself facing 3 Kethmore cruisers at once. Instead of retreating, he called for support. All ships, this is Soul's Fury. I have 3 heavy contacts that need to learn some manners. This is Destroyer Squadron 7, came Commander Ji-Hai's voice. We're on our way. Negative, Squadron 7. I need you to stay on patrol. These 3 are mine. Hyun-woo's ship was larger than the Kethmore vessels, but they had better weapons. What they didn't have was human creativity. Engineering, can you reroute power from life support to the forward shields? Sir, that will kill the crew in 30 minutes. Then we better finish this fight in 29 minutes. The Soul's Fury charged directly into the center of the 3 Kethmore ships, weapons blazing. The alien vessels tried to surround the human dreadnought, but Hyun-woo had spent 20 years studying space combat. He knew exactly how to turn their advantage against them. Using the gravity well of a nearby moon, he whipped his ship around in a maneuver that brought all 3 enemy vessels into his firing arc while keeping them from targeting him effectively. It was impossible according to standard military doctrine, which was why it worked. When the smoke cleared, all 3 Kethmore ships were debris, and the Soul's Fury was still fighting. But it was on the ground that the humans really showed what they were made of. General Kyung-soo had deployed his Marines to protect Valari colonies that couldn't be evacuated in time. The Kethmore ground forces had never encountered anything like human soldiers. The silicon-based aliens were tough and strong, adapted to survive in environments that would kill most biological life. But they had always fought civilians or lightly armed defenders. They had never faced creatures that considered hostile environments to be training exercises. Sergeant Major Woo Jin led his squad through the toxic atmosphere of Valari 7 without breathing gear, using the poison gas as cover while they hunted. Kethmore landing parties. Target acquired, he reported. Kethmore patrol, 12 contacts, moving toward the civilian shelters. Rules of engagement? Asked Corporal Min-ho. Same as always. Protect the innocent. Eliminate the threat. The Kethmore. Patrol never knew what hit them. Human soldiers moved through terrain that should have been impossible to navigate, using weapons that adapted to alien technology, fighting with a coordination that seemed almost supernatural. When the last Kethmore ship fled the system 6 hours. Later, Thalaris found himself staring at displays he couldn't quite believe. The human fleet had destroyed or disabled 43 enemy vessels, while losing only 18 of their own ships. How? He asked Captain Han-Sol. How did you do this? We had something the Kethmore didn't expect, Han-Sol replied. What? We had a reason to fight. They were just following orders. 3 weeks after the first battle, Admiral Young-ho stood in what used to be a Valari meditation garden and was now the command center for the largest military operation in human history. The beautiful crystal formations had been converted into communication arrays, and the peaceful fountains now powered tactical displays showing the entire Kethmore Empire. Status report, he said to his assembled officers. Captain Han-Sol stepped forward with a tablet full of data. We've established forward bases in 7 Valari systems. The Kethmore have pulled back their main fleets, but they're still hitting colonies on the outer edges. Our losses? Minimal, sir. 23 ships damaged in the last week, only 4 total losses. The Kethmore are avoiding direct confrontation with our main forces. Because they're learning, added Dr. Yunji from her position at the Xenobiology station. I've been analyzing captured Kethmore communications. They're calling us the impossible killers and demons from the void. They've never encountered a species like us. Young-Ho nodded. What about our new friends? Ambassador Thaleris approached from across the garden. Over the past 3 weeks, the Valari diplomat had learned to walk among humans without flinching, though he still seemed amazed that such dangerous creatures could be so gentle with peaceful species. My people are adjusting to having protectors, Thaleris said carefully. It's difficult for us to understand how you can be so violent toward our enemies while being so kind to us. We're not violent for fun, explained Colonel Tae-sung, who was reviewing deployment reports. We're violent when we need to be. There's a difference. A very important difference, agreed Commander Ji Hai. Violence in defense of innocent life is completely different from violence for conquest or pleasure. Dr. Hai-Wan looked up from her research station where she had been studying captured Kethmore technology. Admiral, I think I've figured out why the Kethmore are so confused by our tactics. Explain. Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming force against helpless targets. They've spent thousands of years conquering species that had no way to fight back. They literally don't know how to handle an enemy that fights back effectively. And the fact that we're biological life forms makes it worse, added Dr. Yunji. To them, biological life is supposed to be weak, soft, and easily destroyed. We don't fit their understanding of how the universe works. Captain Min-Su entered the command center with a grim smile on his face. His stealth ship had just returned from a deep strike mission into Kethmore space. Reporting mission completion, sir. The supply depot at Kethmore 7 is no longer operational. Casualties? None on our side. The depot was defended by automated systems only. Apparently, they pulled all their personnel back to defend more important targets. Young-Ho studied the tactical display. They're abandoning their outer systems to protect their core worlds. That tells us they're scared. They should be, said Captain Hyan Wu, whose dreadnought was currently in orbit above Valari Prime. We've destroyed almost a quarter of their fleet, and they haven't managed to seriously damage any of our major ships. The problem is time, Young-Ho said. Every day we spend out here is another day the Kethmore have to adapt to our tactics, and sooner or later Earth is going to want some of these ships back for home defense. Sir, interrupted Communications Officer Su Jin. Incoming priority transmission from Kethmore space. It's addressed to you personally. Put it through. The main display filled with the image of Emperor Kethvar himself. The massive silicon-based creature looked exactly as dangerous as he had in previous transmissions, but there was something different in his glowing red eyes, something that looked almost like fear. Human Admiral Young-Ho, the Emperor's grinding voice echoed through the garden. I am Emperor Kethvar of the Kethmore Empire. I wish to discuss terms. Young-Ho stepped forward. What kind of terms? You have proven your species is more capable than we initially believed. Perhaps we can reach an understanding. The galaxy is large enough for both our empires. You mean you want us to let you continue murdering peaceful species as long as you don't bother humans? There was a pause. That would be acceptable. To you, maybe. Not to us. Young-Ho's voice was calm but cold. Let me explain something about humans, Emperor. We don't negotiate with genocidal monsters. We eliminate them. You cannot eliminate an entire empire. We control hundreds of star systems. Watch us. Young-Ho cut the transmission and turned to his officers. Gentlemen, ladies, it's time to introduce the Kethmore Empire to the full scope of human warfare. Captain Minsu, I want stealth strikes on every military installation in their outer systems. Captain Hyunwoo, take the main battle fleet and start working your way toward their core worlds. Colonel Tae-sung, prepare your Marines for planetary assault operations. Sir, said Dr. Haiwan, I've been developing something that might help. We've reverse-engineered their shield technology, but with human improvements. What kind of improvements? The Kethmore use their shields purely defensively. We figured out how to turn them into weapons. Imagine a shield generator that can project its energy field directly into an enemy ship. Young-Ho smiled. I like it. Get it installed on our ships as quickly as possible. Over the next month, the humans introduced the Kethmore Empire to a type of warfare they had never imagined. Human ships appeared without warning in systems the aliens thought were safe, destroyed everything military, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Captain Minsu's stealth squadron became legends of terror throughout Kethmore space. His ships could appear anywhere at any time, and the aliens never knew where they would strike next. Target acquired, Minsu reported from the bridge of his stealth destroyer. Kethmore shipyard, heavily defended. How heavily? Asked his weapons. Officer, 20 defense platforms, 50 patrol ships, and a battle station. That's a lot of firepower, sir. Yes, it is. Good thing we're not planning to fight fair. Minsu's ship approached the shipyard using an asteroid field for cover. The Kethmore defenses were designed to stop large fleets, not single ships using human stealth technology. Weapons ready, sir. Target the main fusion reactor on the battle station. Once that goes up, we won't need to worry about the other defenses. The stealth destroyer fired a single torpedo loaded with human antimatter warheads. The explosion that followed could be seen from 3 star systems away. Meanwhile, the main human fleet was advancing steadily through Kethmore space, defeating every force sent against them. The aliens had superior numbers, but humans had something better. They had learned to fight on the worst world in the galaxy, and everything else seemed easy by comparison. General Kyung-soo established training camps on liberated Kethmore worlds, where he attempted to teach Valari civilians basic self-defense. The sessions were not going well. No, he said patiently to a group of Valari volunteers. When someone attacks you, you fight back. You don't try to understand their motivation. But surely there must be a peaceful solution, protested one of the Valari trainees. The peaceful solution is making sure they can't attack anyone else, explained Sergeant Major Woo Jin. Sometimes the only way to create peace is to eliminate the people who refuse to be peaceful. That seems so violent. Ma'am, Woo Jin said gently, 3 months ago your entire species was about to be exterminated. Now you're safe. Your worlds are protected, and your children have a future. That didn't happen because we asked the Kethmore nicely to stop killing you. The cultural exchange went both ways. Dr. Yunji spent hours learning Valari healing techniques, which were far more advanced than anything humans had developed. This is incredible, she told her Valari teacher, a medical specialist named Jendal. You can heal injuries that would be permanent for humans, and you can survive injuries that would kill us instantly, Jendal replied. Your species is remarkably durable. We had to be. Our home world tried to kill us every day for millions of years. That explains much about your fighting abilities, but it doesn't explain your kindness to peaceful species. Dr. Yunji thought about that. Maybe it's because we know what it's like to struggle for survival. We don't want others to go through what we went through. Back in Kethmore space, Commander Inho was leading the siege of the Empire's primary shipyards. The massive industrial complex was defended by 3 full fleets and orbital defense platforms that could destroy planets. "Status report," he called, from his command ship. "We're outnumbered 15 to 1, sir," reported his tactical officer. "Sounds about right for a human operation. Begin the attack." What followed was a masterpiece of human military doctrine. Instead of attacking the heavily defended shipyards directly, Inho's fleet targeted the supply lines, communication networks, and support facilities. Within 48 hours, the massive defensive force was blind, isolated, and running out of ammunition. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the Kethmore commander is requesting terms of surrender. Tell him he can surrender unconditionally or he can be destroyed. His choice." 3 hours later, the most heavily defended installation in the Kethmore Empire was under human control. Back on Valari Prime, Admiral Young Ho reviewed the latest reports with satisfaction. In 6 weeks, the human fleet had captured or destroyed 70% of the Kethmore military. More importantly, Emperor Kethvar had ruled the Kethmore Empire for over 3,000 years. In all that time, no one had ever demanded to meet with him as an equal. Beings either served the Empire or were destroyed by it. There was no third option, until now. He stood in his throne room on the capital world of Kethmora Prime, watching the sensor displays that showed human ships surrounding his planet. 800 vessels from a species he had never heard of 6 months ago. A species that had taken his mighty empire apart piece by piece like it was a puzzle made for children. "Status report," he commanded his military advisor, General Vexcar. "All outer systems have fallen or surrendered to the humans, Emperor. Our remaining fleet consists of 112 ships, mostly damaged. The humans have offered one final meeting before they complete their conquest. And if I refuse this meeting," General Vexcar looked at the tactical displays, "then they will destroy this world and everything on it, Emperor. They have the firepower to crack our planet's crust." Kethavar's red eyes glowed brighter with rage. "How is this possible? We are the supreme species in this galaxy. We have conquered hundreds of worlds." "Yes, Emperor, but we conquered weak species, peaceful species, species that had no idea how to fight back." The general paused. "The humans are different." "Different how?" "They fight like they enjoy it, Emperor, but only when someone threatens innocence. They take no pleasure in conquest for its own sake. They seem to genuinely care about protecting other species. That makes no sense. Why would a powerful species protect the weak?" "I don't know, Emperor, but that's exactly what they do." 3 hours later, Emperor Kethvar found himself in a situation he had never imagined, sitting across a negotiation table from beings who could destroy him but had chosen to talk instead. Admiral Young Ho sat calmly on the opposite side of the table, flanked by Dr. Solhe, a human xenobiologist who had spent weeks studying Kethmore culture and biology. "Emperor Kethvar," Young Ho said formally, "thank you for agreeing to this meeting." "I had little choice," the Emperor replied, his voice grinding like breaking stone. "Your ships surround my world." "Yes, they do. But we're here to offer you something your species has never had before. A choice." "What kind of choice?" Dr. Solhe activated a holographic display showing detailed biological scans. "We've spent considerable time studying your species, Emperor. You're remarkable beings. silicon-based life forms that can survive in environments that would kill most biological species. We are superior to biological scum, Kethvar stated. In some ways, yes, but you've made a critical error in your understanding of how the galaxy works. Explain. Young-ho leaned forward. You assumed that being physically superior made you morally superior. You decided that your strength gave you the right to exterminate other species. That was a mistake. We take what we need to survive. No. Dr. Sol-He said gently, you take what you want for expansion. Our analysis of your conquered worlds shows that you consume far more resources than your species actually needs. You're not fighting for survival. You're fighting for dominance. Kethvar's massive form shifted angrily. And what do you propose we do instead? Become weak like the other species? We propose you become something better than what you are, Young-ho said. We've developed conversion technology that can transform your resource consumption process. Instead of stripping planets bare, you could extract what you need while leaving the worlds habitable for other species. Why would we want to do that? Because the alternative is extinction, Young-ho said simply. Not just for your military, but for your entire species. The Emperor laughed, a sound like avalanche. You would not dare commit genocide. You claim to protect life. We protect innocent life, Young-ho corrected. Your species lost its innocence the first time you exterminated a peaceful civilization for convenience. Dr. Sol-He activated another display. But Emperor, we don't want to destroy you. We want to offer you something your species has never had. The chance to be part of something larger than conquest. What do you mean? A galactic community. Species working together, sharing knowledge, protecting each other. The Valari have already agreed to share their healing technology with any species that pledges to protect peaceful life. Imagine what your people could accomplish if you used your strength to build instead of destroy. For the first time in the conversation, Emperor Kethvar was silent. The concept of cooperation instead of domination was so foreign to Kethmore, thinking that he struggled to understand it. You're saying we should serve other species? No, Young-ho said. We're saying you should join them as equals, contributors, to galactic civilization instead of its destroyers. And if we refuse? Admiral Young-ho's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes became very cold. Then humanity will solve the Kethmore problem permanently. We will not allow genocidal species to threaten innocent life anywhere in this galaxy. The Emperor studied the human admiral for a long moment. You would really destroy my entire empire to protect aliens you've never met? We've already destroyed most of your empire to protect aliens we'd never met. The only question now is whether we need to finish the job. Outside the negotiation room, Captain Subin was coordinating the orbital positions of the human fleet. Her ships were arranged in a pattern that could deliver precise strikes against military targets while avoiding civilian areas. Ma'am, her weapons officer reported, we have targeting solutions for all military installations on the planet. If talks break down, we can eliminate their remaining military capability within 30 minutes. What about civilian casualties? Minimal, ma'am. The humans have been very precise about identifying military versus civilian targets. Good. We're not here to commit genocide. We're here to stop it. Meanwhile, on the surface, Major Wu Jin was leading a reconnaissance team through the Kethmore capital city. The mission was intelligence gathering, but it had become something more. Understanding. These beings, he reported to Colonel Tae-sung, they're not monsters. They're just limited in their thinking. Their entire culture is based on the idea that strength equals rightness. Can they change? I think so, sir, but it won't be easy. 3,000 years of cultural programming doesn't disappear overnight. Back in the negotiation room, Dr. Sol He was explaining the technical details of the resource conversion technology. Your current consumption methods require destroying entire ecosystems, she said. But with these modifications, you could extract the minerals you need while actually improving planetary environments for biological life. This technology, it would work for our species? We've run extensive simulations based on your biological requirements. Yes, it would work. Better than your current methods, actually. More efficient, more sustainable, and it would allow you to coexist with other species instead of exterminating them. Emperor Kethvar was quiet for several minutes, processing information that challenged everything his species had believed for millennia. What guarantees do we have that you won't simply destroy us once we convert our technology? Young-ho smiled slightly. The same guarantee we've given the 17 other species we've freed from your empire. If you commit to peaceful coexistence and protection of innocent life, humanity will consider you an ally rather than a threat. And if we violate this agreement, then you'll discover that humans have very long memories and very little patience for species that prey on the innocent. 3 days later, Ambassador Thaleris stood in the same crystal garden where Admiral Young-ho had established his command center, watching something he had never expected to see. Kethmore ships working alongside human vessels to rebuild worlds that the Empire had damaged. It's remarkable, he said to Captain Han Sol. 6 months ago, the Kethmore were exterminating my people. Now they're helping to restore our colonies. People can change, Han Sol replied. Even silicon-based people. They just need the right motivation. And if they hadn't chosen to change, then there would be no more Kethmore Empire. Humans don't make idle threats when innocent lives are at stake. Dr. Yunji approached with her latest report. The conversion technology is working better than we hoped. The Kethmore are actually producing more useful resources than before, and the environmental impact has been reduced by 97%. What about their military? They're being retrained as a galactic protection force. Emperor Kethvar has agreed to place Kethmore military assets under a joint command structure with human forces. Young-ho looked up from his tactical displays. Status of the other species in this sector? All former Kethmore slave worlds have been liberated. We've made contact with 43 different species that were under threat. Most of them are asking for protection agreements with Earth. And our fleet? Ready to return to human space, sir. The situation here is stable. Young-ho nodded and activated the main communication system. Attention all ships of the United Earth Defense Force. Mission accomplished. We came here to protect innocent life and establish galactic peace. Both objectives have been achieved. He paused, then continued. What we've accomplished here will be remembered across the galaxy. We've proven that genocide is not acceptable, that peaceful species deserve protection, and that bullies will face consequences no matter how powerful they think they are.